Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night. We got some details and some updates regarding the upcoming military aid. If you remember, yesterday the United States of America promised the Ukrainians another 100 millions, and according to information we have, this is going to be the shortest, one of the shortest military aid since the beginning of the special military operation. I compared the military aids packages one with another based on the such a thing like rounds of small arms munition. And when talking about this line, the Ukrainians received 3 millions the previous months in October and September as well. When talking about the period of time when the Ukrainians launched their greatest counter-offensive operation, almost every single month the Ukrainians were receiving around from 10 till 20 millions of small arms munition. So we see that the Western countries, the United States of America, don't have any goals, any attempts or any targets to start any offensive operation from the Ukrainian side, because basically the amount of rounds of small arms munition is not enough to make any offensive, just to have defense state on the ground. Very interesting updates are coming from Armenia. Right before I start making this video, the sources reported that Armenia, to be more precise, Pashinyan, is planning to send 200 missiles point U.U to Ukraine and launching equipment. Obviously, this is another step of escalation between Armenia and Russian Federation. So we'll see how the Russians are going to respond to the situation. Now let's move to the situation on the ground, and we got a lot of very interesting updates. First of all, let's discuss currently. According to some Russian sources, which is most important, the Ukrainians managed to launch another unexpected attack, and as a result of clashes, the Ukrainians managed to establish control over a few lines in the forest. So according to information we have, probably this territory is under Ukrainian control. The Russians still haven't managed to stabilize, as we can see, the situation, and haven't managed to force the Ukrainians to step back. From the Russian side, we see just the air bombings, like 500 bombings, but 12 flamethrowers. But as we can see, this is not enough to force the Ukrainians to step back from this territory. Now we are moving to Zaporozhye direction. We got also a lot of very interesting updates from this territory. First of all, I would like to discuss with you the video that we got from Petykhatki, Maly-Sherbaki area. On this video, we are using for a few purposes. One of them is to geolocate the edge positions of the Russians and the Ukrainians. On this video we see how the Russians launched an artillery preparation and they were bombing the Ukrainian positions. After that the Russians started bombardments with FPV drones, and after that the Russians launched an offensive and assault operation with infantry, and as a result of that attack the Russians managed to establish control over this territory and to capture a few Ukrainian soldiers. They surrendered and basically they saved their lives. And this is very important video, because if we increase the number of this since the beginning of November, we're going to see a certain Russian activization in this area. We see at least 3 directions of Russian activity. First area is the city by the name of Kamyanska. This is the main logistical hub and the main concentration of Ukrainian forces that they used to send forces in direction of Lapkovaya. Also, we have another supply road that goes from Maly-Sherbaki to Stepova and then to Petykhatki. And as you can see, the Russians increased their activity on the line between Stepova and Maly-Sherbaki on these geolocations with a few bombardments, even attempts from the Russian side to attack in this direction. And as I understand, the Russians are planning to intensify their actions in direction of this square, to take this square and to get as close as possible to the Ukrainian positions, and probably to move their further edge positions to this red line and to establish physical control or control over the supply road that goes from Maly-Sherbaki to Stepova. I'm not sure that the Russians are planning to establish long-term positions, but short-term positions they are able to do, while the main Russian forces will attack this village by the name of Petykhatki. Obviously, all these geolocations, all these arrows reminds me at the beginning or the preparation before a small offensive operation in this area with the purpose to return control over the villages like Lapkova, Stepova and Petykhatki. So we'll see. Very interesting details are coming also from, not maybe from this area, I think that from this area, according to information we have, you remember during the previous months the Russians destroyed at least 3 headquarters of Ukrainian brigades on Zaporozhye direction, 2 128th brigade, 1 unknown brigade, and we had the questions how the Russians managed managed to do this. And today the Russians published the video how they're like launched their like say drone Arlan 10 with special equipment, with scanning equipment, and the drone acts as a cell phone station, intercepting calls and messages. Mobile phone data is transmitted to headquarters after proceeding. Russian artilleryman successfully hit the enemy, the Ukrainian forces. So this is the common situation in Zaporozhye area, and as I can see, the Ukrainians still haven't found a solution how to discover and destroy these Arlan's 10 drones with scanning equipment. When talking about Zaporozhye area, the Ukrainians continue moving their forces to the line between Robotin and Novoprokopovka, but without any success. Most of the attacks that took place during November were repelled by the Russians. The Ukrainians had significant losses. They lost lots of tanks, armored vehicles, personal carriers. Maybe that now they're trying to evacuate the abandoned equipment, but anyway, we see that there are no progress from the Ukrainian side. Now we are moving to South Donetsk direction, and we also got a lot of updates, a lot of activizations. First, the Russians continue bombardments of Ukrainian positions in the fields between Urozhaine, Staromayorsk and Novodonetsk. On this video we see another FAB 500 strike, and as a result of that strike, according to the author of this video, another Ukrainian position was destroyed. If we increase the number of this since the beginning of November, we see a certain Russian activization on the left side and on the right side of Mokra Yale River, and to be more precise, on the left and the right side from the villages like Staromayorsk and Urozhaine. Now we're moving further to the east in direction of Uglidar. The Russians managed to discover another Ukrainian artillery system, and as a result of counter-artillery duel to destroy it. Very interesting updates are coming from Novomikhailov. Most of the mappers have already updated their map, including Deep State map and the Syriac map, and according to them, the Russians managed to establish control over these fields and to get as close as possible to Novomikhailov, and basically now the Russians are within a distance of let's say 1.5 kilometer in front of the village, and they're about to start another wave of offensive operation in direction of the village, and probably the Russians will be able by the end of this week to enter and to make a first step inside of the village. So we'll see and we'll follow the situation, because we see that the events in this area continue to develop with a very high speed. When talking about Avdiivka, we also got a lot of updates from this territory. Mainly we got some geolocations and some messages. The Russian sources reported that if you remember, during the previous months and November, we got at least 3 reports from the 110th Brigade. They were claiming about the very bad situation, asking for help and blah 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 and so on. And today we got final confirmation that 2 more battalions of Ukrainians of 110th Brigade reported and wrote some messages, video messages to Zelensky, asking him to give them some help or maybe even to evacuate them. And after that, according to the Russians, the Ukrainian authorities moved the anti-retreat forces, barrier forces of Aidar, and now there is like no possibilities to step back from Avdiivka at all. Also, we got some geolocations from the north. The Ukrainians published the videos of FPV drone bombardments of the Russian positions along the railways in the south of the village by the name of Novokalinova, which confirms the Russian presence in this area. So now this area is completely geolocated and under complete Russian control. Also, when talking about drones, we got another very interesting video. This video was made by the Russian side. On this video, we can see a very big Baba Yaga drone, Ukrainian drone. And as you can see, usually the Ukrainians used to use this drone just for bombardments. This Baba Yaga drone can bring a lot of bombs on board and to bomb a lot of positions of Russian forces. Or the Russians were doing the same, but on this video we see completely different way of usage approach. Baba Yaga drone brought a small FPV drone on board, and after this drone was dropped, FPV drone start flying in direction of Russian positions. The purpose of this approach is that FPV drones has a very small batteries and they are low range. But if you can use Baba Yaga, you can bring this drone very deep rear of Russian or Ukrainian territory, to drop this drone there and to attack basically the enemy positions in the rear front. So this is the new approach of usage of this type of drone, and we see that probably the Russians, either the Russians or the Ukrainians, are planning to develop this technology and this type of warfare. When talking about the south in direction of Avdiivka, the Ukrainians tried to return positions in the vicinity of of the road and the bridge between Tsarskaya Khota fortification and the Donetsk Ring Road, and they sent some reconnaissance or sabotage group, but the Russians managed to discover them, and at some certain point the Russians started bombing and attacking them, and as a result of those bombardments the Ukrainians were defeated and having some losses were forced to step back. Now we are moving to Gorlovka direction. We got some details, just messages. The Russians are saying that as a result of counteroffensive, they managed to return control over the hills, over the landfills, but I'm not planning to change the map for now, because we had the same updates about Krynki. The Russians maybe published 20 or 30 updates that they managed to destroy everything in Krynki. Millions of Ukrainians were destroyed in the vicinity of Krynki, but for now we see that Ukrainians continue progress in this area for some reason, so that's why we will keep the situation in Gorlovka the same way. We need real proofs and real geolocated videos on the hill to change the map. At least I will follow this strategy according specifically this part of the front line. When talking about Avdiivka, about Bakhmut, Artyomovsk, we haven't received anything during the previous night, so that's it, I believe so. Yes, and that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.